Iowa State just made what could be their final addition to the basketball team in the transfer portal, and this last addition could be what sets them up for a national title run. We're talking about it today on Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you for being here every single day and making this your first watch or listen of the day. I appreciate it more than you know. Whether you're watching on YouTube or following along on your favorite podcasting platform, be sure to hit subscribe so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. Today, first things first, we're going to talk about the addition through the transfer portal to Iowa State's men's basketball team and just what he could do for this team, what role he fills in. And then we're going to talk a lot of the NFL kind of draft and what happened to Cyclones over the weekend. First, we're going to talk about the guys that were actually taken in those first 7 rounds, and then we're going to talk about all of the guys that are headed to the NFL from Iowa State and why I'm noticing a little bit of a pattern in those guys, and I want to point that out. So can't wait to dive into all that and more. But first, this episode is brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox, no console needed. Head to amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. Let's talk about Dominick Nelson, transfer to Iowa State University from the Utah Valley Wolverines. Awesome logo. This dude is standing at 6'5", 180 pounds, and was the WAC Player of the Year last year, I believe. Obviously standing out there. First team All Citrus Conference player at Polk State College. I believe that was the year before, obviously before he transferred to Utah State. Not Utah State, excuse me. Where is it? Utah Valley. I don't know why I said Utah State there. My apologies. As far as stats go for this guy, obviously I watched the tape, so we'll talk about that in a second. But stats-wise, played in all 34 games last year. That's good news. Almost 30 minutes a game. Pretty standard there. Let's see here. Field goal percentage coming in at about 43%. 3-point at 25%. Just a hair over 25% there. Does get to the free throw line quite a bit, and I'll get into why I think that might be the bright side here. It shoots about 70% from said line. Not huge on the offensive boards, but about 4.5 defensive rebounds, totaling out to about 5 rebounds a game. And then this is a point that I kind of want to touch on, and we'll do so in a second, but 1.7 assists on average, about, just under 1 block, just under 1 steal, and then 2.3 turnovers. So something that Iowa State felt like struggled with last year was turning over the ball, and the assist to turnover ratio here for Dominick Nelson is something that kind of popped off the board to me right away, but that's not the only thing that defines his game here. Obviously, people have noticed Dominick Nelson kind of stood out on this team here, put up 22 against Stanford, 21 against Samford, 20 against Jackson State, and 21 against UTEP. Like I said, 6'5", definitely has the size there. And watching his actual tape and watching his actual games, I personally noticed very solid around the rim and as far as finishing. Kind of reminded me of Keyshawn Gilbert in just the crazy ways he was able to finish. Very much able to get downhill scores in transition as well. I think all of that translates to Iowa State's game plan. As far as a spot-up shooter, kind of catch-and-shoot guy, struggled a little bit there. But I don't know if that's necessarily the role he needs to play on this team this coming year. The team currently, as I understand it, sits at Taman, Milan, Joshua Jefferson, Nate Heisey, Cade Kelderman, names we all know, and then Jamarian Bateman, Dominicus Plata, Killian Torre, Xavier Mitchell, Eric Mulder in the transfer portal there, Mason Williams, Blake Buchanan, Anthony Rise, who's a walk-on, and then Dominick Nelson. So quite a few new faces, 5 to my knowledge, that are very prevalent from last year. Obviously, Taman, Milan, Jefferson, Heisey, and then Kelderman got quite a bit of playing time at the end of the year there. In my opinion, now not knowing a ton about some of these incoming guys, obviously, I haven't seen them really play, and I would love to dive into some tape there. But I do think that Mason Williams can kind of be that, spot up shooter a little bit. We saw some of that from Nate Heisey getting more confident at the end of the year. I thought he really kind of stepped into his own there. Milan's going to hit one from time to time. Taman's going to hit one from time to time. I want to find out who's going to end up being that kind of scoring guy for this Iowa State team. I don't think it will be Dominick Nelson. I don't think that. Now, that being said, when you look at what Curtis Jones was doing before he came to Iowa State and what he ended up being, I don't think very many people were picking him either. So that's the thing with this team is I'm not writing off any one of these dudes. Any one of these guys could be the Big 12 Player of the Year, All-American, however you want, like whatever accolade you pick out, these guys, any one of them can do it. That's the beauty of what Iowa State does in developing these players, especially once they get here. So I think that there is a very promising upside for every single one of these guys. I don't want to get too caught up in the stats that we have from the past. Generally, what I do is just kind of look at their play style and kind of wonder where that fits into this scheme. Because obviously we know Taman is going to make Taman plays. Like that's kind of he's kind of all over the place as far as actually watching his tape. But I feel like it's like hustle, effort type of plays that really stand out on tape. He's got other great qualities as well. And I don't need to go through all these guys that you know, right? But just as far as watching tape and seeing where they fit in, it felt to me like Mason Williams was going to be a bit of a shooter for this team. Dominick Nelson, on the other hand, obviously is the guy we're talking about right now. I wonder if he's kind of just going to be that super tall, able to rebound and can be kicked out to, but more so in the sense of the ability to drive. So he's out in the corner as a threat and then drives in and could kick or could finish and can get to the line consistently. That's where I want to see him. Now in transition also can stand out and can finish the plays there, whether he's being chased down or not, can dunk, obviously, and his ability to jelly around the rim stood out to me just immediately. I don't think this is our shooter, though. I want to, that's my guess. Obviously what I'm saying isn't worth a whole lot here. I mean, they're kind of like poker chips. Like poker chips themselves aren't really worth anything. You have to take them to the main counter to cash them in. I feel like that's kind of where my thoughts are. Like they're just poker chips a little bit. So my thought is that Dominick Nelson not going to be that spot-up shooter, but very well could be an important piece to this team. And if nothing else, a very solid player that can come off the bench. Now, obviously, Watson from last year felt like he was that guy, like very solid coming off the bench. And a lot of people were wondering, why aren't we seeing more DeMarion Watson? I don't have the answers for you, unfortunately. But I can tell you, if we have a guy like Dominick Nelson, who maybe doesn't see 30 minutes a game, but pops in and out and makes a few huge plays, obviously with his size, couple big rebounds, couple hammers, couple daggers, as Coach Otz would say, that could be the difference in some of these games in just a way to get some guys off the floor. And now I don't think that Otz is going to change his coaching strategy. I think that he will stick with kind of just, it feels like he wants to run these guys into the ground, especially early and all season long. And it feels like they're tired by the end of the year. But I do wonder, if you have guys like this kind of at the end of your bench who can play solid roles, even if it is just for 5 minutes to give those starters a little bit more of a rest, this is a guy that I would feel confident trotting out there, even if it is just for a few minutes. I mean, 6'5" is so tall, but I mean, I guess in basketball, it's a little bit different. For me, I'd be looking straight up at a 6'5" guy. So probably I'm personally not coming down with that many rebounds. But I guess there's a reason I don't play D1. I was more of a box out guy. I make someone else get it kind of deal. This is a great addition, though. I do think that this is kind of that final piece. I don't foresee Iowa State making any more moves. I wonder if this is kind of that last, like, all right, we've got it. Now we don't have to worry about this anymore as far as making this team. Obviously, they'll have to keep recruiting for down the line. But for next year, it does have to feel nice to know that this is the team we've got. This is these are these guys' strengths. This is how we're going to kind of go about constructing this offensive game plan. And then obviously on the defensive side of the ball is where Iowa State's going to shine every single year. Can't wait to see what they do. And I think Dominick Nelson will play a pretty key piece in this team. I don't know how many minutes exactly, but when he's out there, I'm sure he's going to make a huge impact. Speaking of huge impact, Cyclones in the NFL are known for making a big impact on their teams. The NFL draft was this last weekend. Let's talk about who got drafted and to where coming up right after this. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Me personally, I love how FanDuel makes betting so super easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into the player props. It's the best. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite player props. You can really get into the weeds there. And plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into same-game parlays for a chance to win big. Don't miss out and head to FanDuel.com right now and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. So the NFL draft was this last weekend. Couple Cyclones taken off the board. You're here with Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's always a great day when more Cyclones head to the NFL. I know in Jack Trice, when they put up the Cyclones in the NFL board, everyone goes nuts. It's so much fun to watch. Obviously, I'm a Patriots fan, and I don't really care that much for the Jets. But when the Jets became the New York Cyclones, it was like, okay, I can watch these guys play. Like, I love watching Brees out there, Alan Lazard, just to name a few. And then those highlights getting played in Jack Trice, the best. They really are. So we had 4 guys get drafted from Iowa State. Let's talk about it a little bit here. Obviously, Jaden Higgins, the first off the board, and actually, believe it or not, the highest taken wide receiver in program history, the highest drafted wide receiver in program history, goes 34 overall. So coming in just right at the beginning of that second round. Me personally, I really thought he was first round talent, but at the end of the day, I'm not an NFL GM, and I can't be too upset to see him go at 34. It's kind of the same, really, as 32 at the end of the day. Goes to Texans, the Houston Texans, and last season, the Texans won the AFC South with a 10-7 record ahead of the Colts, then the Jags, and then the Titans. Colts only 2 games back at 8-9 there. This Texans team, obviously, really, really solid, and CJ Stroud will be throwing him the ball more than likely. So that's over, like, of all the quarterbacks, CJ Stroud in that kind of upper tier. So that's exciting for his kind of potential there. We'll be joining a few Cyclones, obviously, on the Texans already, and I'm going to get to that in a second, in just another step even further. But that addition for the Texans, I think that this is a great addition for CJ Stroud. And I think that Jaden Higgins obviously going to a great spot in a team that is coming off a division championship, and I think has a lot of upside in the coming years. Second off the board for the Cyclones was Darian Porter, going 68 overall to the Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders, the black and white there. That team, very interesting. Obviously, 4-13 last year. Feels like they've kind of been going through some stuff for the last few years, but now with where the team is with Carroll, I believe Geno Smith is the the quarterback over there. I think that they've got kind of things set up. I believe they took Ashton Genty with, was it the 10 pick or maybe the 6 pick? Maybe there was 6. Either way, I believe Genty was their first pick in this year's draft. And all of that to say, I just think that the Raiders are in a bit of a different time now than they were last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, because it feels like the Raiders have kind of been the punching bag of that AFC West division, which is very, very tough, obviously, with the Chiefs in there. And even if you only watch college football, I'm sure you know what the Chiefs have done and what they're looking to do, obviously this year, what they were looking to do this last year, getting shut down by the Eagles. Nonetheless, this isn't an NFL podcast per se, but the Chargers and Broncos, solid teams in there as well. I think that this addition of Darian Porter to the Raiders, they're gonna see the impact immediately. We talked so much about how athletic Darian Porter is. Great pick at 68 here. I think that they immediately move up into probably third in the division, but the NFL is so unpredictable. I don't know. I mean, would I be crazy to say the Chiefs are going to be last in the division? Yeah, but like, could that happen? It could. You just never really, really know until maybe week 10 or something like that. So let's jump off of the Raiders and talk about the Texans again. Yeah, that's right. No, I'm not reading this wrong. I'm not looking at Jaden Higgins twice. Jalen Knoll picked 79 overall to head to Houston. As I said, I'm not going to preview all of the Texans' accolades from last season, but they did win that, the AFC South. this is really, really cool. You see Jaden and Jalen in the same place for this, for I guess the third year on the same team. And this is, I mean, just how neat is that? I love that we're seeing I guess it's not really, they're not kind of getting back together because it's like they never left. At the end of the day, that like one season ended and the next season's going to start and they're going to be on the same team. Now, obviously, Xavier Hutchinson is already in Houston, and that's exciting for them as well. We're seeing 3 wide receivers from Iowa State. We're looking at the Houston Cyclones here. I mean, that is kind of what we're dealing with. And this is a topic for another day. But Noah Pauley and Taylor Mauser are kind of now in my we got to keep an eye on them category, because those are coaches that the Texans could easily pick up. Now, I'm not saying anything about the current Texans coaches. That's not what I'm saying. But with just so many Iowa State guys there, Noah Pauley and Taylor Mauser obviously having so much experience with them, knowing what they're capable of, the strengths, how can we set this offense up to see the most success from these wide receivers? This it's just something that was on my radar immediately. But obviously the Texans, they're not only full of wide receivers from Iowa State, they have other players on the roster. Obviously, Stephon Diggs no longer with the Texans, but Tank Dell could be returning from injury there. We'll see what that looks like. Christian Kirk, I believe, as well on that team. So some big names, but I think Iowa State is going to see some pops, some bursts from these guys. You're going to notice, obviously, Jalen Noel will probably be playing some special teams. I'm guessing he'll make quite a bit of noise there. And then finally, the last Cyclone off the board, every single one drafted into the AFC. Just kind of crazy there. Jalen Travis goes 127 overall to the Colts. Colts, obviously, in that same AFC South. 3 of them going to the AFC South. Kind of crazy here. Just a weird wrinkle. But the Colts going in at 8 and 9. Anthony Richardson, that quarterback there. I know that obviously Jalen Travis not catching the ball per se, but certainly an athletic weapon in Anthony Richardson. What will happen at the quarterback position? I don't have a great answer for you right now. Like, we're super early. And it feels like that's one of the teams with a bit of a question mark there, but that doesn't really matter. The only point there is like, how many wins will they end up with? I think the Colts are in a good spot to move forward in the next few years. And that's what's really cool about these guys getting drafted is it's not, you obviously want to see Cyclones go 1 overall, 2 overall, like top 10. But those teams at the top, unless you're seeing somebody trade up, generally not the best teams in the league. Like, just generally speaking, year to year, you're going to have some standouts there, some interesting situations. But for the most part, guys at the top had a rough year last year or got the pick from somebody. There's always going to be wrinkles there, like with the Bears taking the 1st overall from the Panthers. Weird. I think they were should have been drafting, I want to say mid-teens or something like that, and ended up at 1. So there's going to be weird years, but for the most part, you're going to see top teams that were struggling in the past. And now looking at, obviously, the Texans, divisional champions, the Colts, 2 games back from them, and the Raiders. Yes, the Raiders kind of stunk last year, but I think the future is bright for the Raiders. I think the moves that they've made in this offseason they're very much indicative of growth. And I also wonder, just like, it felt like that Raiders whole facility, locker room, everybody, it just kind of fell apart. And if it's like a one kind of fall apart now, I'm not saying that's what happened to the Raiders, but you can bounce back from something like that. New head coach here, new quarterback. I expect the Raiders to be doing well. And so then you're going to see Cyclones doing well. And guess what fixes everything? Winning. So when you're on a winning team, now the Raiders are the one exception here. I think that they have the furthest to go to be a really solid winning team. But when you're on a winning team, everything you can kind of let some things go. So if you get a couple drops from Jaden Higgins in some big games, but the Texans end up winning anyway, and they win the AFC South and whatever. Not that I'm saying this will ever happen, but just hypothetically speaking, you're going to have a little bit of a longer leash and a little bit more of like, all right, he's a rookie. He'll have time to develop. But if you're that number 1 guy and you weren't taken in the first round, because none of Iowa State's Cyclones were taken in that first round, you have a couple drops in big games that could have been winning catches. Your leash is very, very short, and you're just looking at it's a much dicier situation. So I am very excited that these guys are going to good teams, and have the opportunity to, it feels like, have a little bit of a longer leash. Not that any of them need it. I think all of those guys are going to be absolutely fantastic for their teams, and all of them were great picks. I'm surprised they didn't go 1, 2, 3, 4, to be completely honest, have teams chomping at the bit to trade up for that spot. But like I said, I am not an NFL GM. There were some decisions made after the draft, and a lot more Cyclones are on NFL teams. I'll jump into that here in a second. I've also picked up on a stat that I thought was really, really interesting. So you're going to want to stick around and hear that coming up right after this. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, and every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. I use Game Time because the all-in pricing means no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay. And like I said, you save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, but that's not all. Concerts, comedy, theater, etc. They have it all. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So we saw 4 Cyclones get drafted in the NFL draft this last weekend. Super exciting. Obviously, that NFL draft chime is very, very cool sound. You just know that something great is about to happen to somebody. And 4 Cyclones getting to hear that chime and then their name called is awesome. It really is. But they're not the only ones headed from Iowa State to the NFL. We had a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 guys, 5 guys, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's what I thought it was 5. 5 guys signed as undrafted free agents. I'll tell you where they're going and who it is, obviously, here in a second. And then I got 2 statistics for you that I'm going to throw at you, and we'll get out of here. All right. So Miles Purchase headed to the Los Angeles Chargers. That's a great pickup for the Chargers there. We're not going to do a huge dive in as we did those on those drafted guys, but Chargers in that AFC West, I think a team that could kind of pursue the Chiefs and make some moves there. Malik Verdone heads to the Falcons, a team that has some question marks for sure, but in the South, anything can happen. All right. Anything is possible. Jared Hufford goes to the Raiders, joining, obviously, Darian Porter there. That'll be a fun little kind of reuniting. But like I said, kind of going from one team to the next. So not really huge on the reuniting there. Steve Klotz to LAC, the Los Angeles Chargers, with Miles Purchase there. Very big addition. I think the Chargers will be good. J.R. Singleton headed to Seattle. So those are your 5 guys that were picked up as undrafted free agents. That brings the total to 9 guys headed to the NFL from Iowa State. And so I was doing some reading, and I came across this stat of the years spent at Iowa State for these guys. So Higgins, 2 years, Porter, 5 years, Knoll, 4, Travis, 1. Of the guys drafted to the NFL in the NFL draft, you had 1 go over that 4-year mark, 1 right at the 4, and 2 guys under 2 years, 1 at 1 year. The average for that I didn't do. But I think it's probably around 3 is my guess. The average of those 2 would probably be 2. The average of those 2 would be about maybe 3. So maybe short of 3. I don't know. Do the math down below. Let me know in the comments. But then I looked at every Cyclone going to the NFL, and you had Purchase, who spent 4 years at Iowa State, Verdone, who spent 4 years with the Cyclones, Hufford, who spent 6 years in the Cardinal and Gold, Steve Klotz, who spent 5 years with an I-State across his helmet there, probably a couple games with the Cyclones on there, and then J.R. Singleton, who laced it up 5 seasons in Ames. That's a lot of years. That just stood out to me immediately. I didn't even have to do the math to be like, I feel like that's uncommon. Obviously, these guys weren't fully in this transfer portal era, but I did the math, and it's an average of 4 years, and I don't even know if there was a decimal. I just wrote down 4. It must have been really close. 4 years across all 9 guys headed to the NFL. They spent 4 years at Iowa State, and I thought that was really, really neat to show. Matt Campbell talks so much about the developmental program that Iowa State is and how they turn guys into NFL players. You might come in with 0 stars, you leave as a first-round pick. Who knows what the case is going to be? You might come in transfer into Iowa State and go at 34 overall, whatever the case is. Big emphasis on developmental program and what Iowa State can do for these guys to turn them pro. I think this is a great kind of sales pitch a little bit. We talk so much about like recruiting and all of that. I feel like this stands out. You come here, you spend a couple years here. It's a great incentive for guys who are in the program already, like stick around, look at these guys. Not so much a come in for a year and then you're out. You're going to the NFL. Like you come in, spend a couple years, develop, and we're going to head you straight up to that draft stage and give Roger Goodell a big old hug. I just thought that was really neat. It's not necessarily the biggest thing in the world. I didn't do this math for other teams, so I don't know if this is like a high number or a low number, but to see this number closer to 4 as opposed to like 1 or 2, I thought was really neat. It's a great pitch for guys. Stick around, okay? You trust the process a little bit. You'll find yourself playing at that next level. The other stat that I wanted to point out, because I felt like this was a really good year for Iowa State, 4 guys drafted. This doesn't take into account the undrafted free agents. I think that all of those guys will be Hall of Famers one day. But at the end of the day, this list that I'm looking at was actually guys drafted. Iowa State tied for first in the Big 12 with guys drafted. Colorado, Arizona State, and OSU amongst the other 3 of the 4 teams that had 4 guys drafted. You had Kansas State come in with 3 guys. TCU and UCF both had 2 apiece. And then Utah, West Virginia, Arizona State, and Cincinnati all had 1 guy drafted. So Iowa State 4 times the lowest teams in the Big 12 to have guys drafted. That stat probably didn't come out of my mouth right, but it also was kind of a pointless stat, to be completely honest. But you're tied with Colorado, Arizona, and OSU guys, teams that had really, really good players. Obviously, the whole Shedeur story, very interesting there. But nonetheless, Travis Hunter, big in that one. Arizona, you got Teteroa McMillan. I apologize. I didn't see anyone from OSU that I knew or recognized. No names jumped off the board. Cody's probably going to come for me for saying that. And there's probably going to be a few guys in the comments who feel the same way. I just missed it. But Iowa State absolutely lighting it up with 4 guys on the board. And I think that this is a sign of things to come. Obviously, huge year for Higgins and Knoll and Porter being just the athletic freak he was, and Jalen Travis coming in and making a huge difference on the O-line there. Just weapon on the outside there for Iowa State, outside of the line, I guess. But so obviously very, very good players, but also just kind of the repertoire, the pedigree of the Iowa State program. It feels like it's on the up and up, which is, I assume, kind of why some of these undrafted free agents got a little bit of a nod. Like, all right, you played in the Big 12. You played on a very good team last year, went to the Big 12 championship. You beat Miami in that Pop-Tart Bowl. I don't want to hear anything about people sitting. We won that game. I mean, we'll give you a chance, That undrafted free agent, so dicey. Just a very interesting situation to find yourself in. To have 5 guys picked up in that sense, I wonder if part of it is kind of where Iowa State is at. Like I said, didn't do stats on any of these other teams. Colorado, really, actually, any of the other teams in the Big 12 or in all of college football. So I don't know how many undrafted free agents went from other teams. I'm sure the Big 10, the SEC, had 90,000 guys from every single team go not only drafted, but also as undrafted free agents. I'm sure that that's exactly what happened, and we'll never hear the end of it. That's just what it is. It just means more to them. But I thought this was really good for Iowa State and for, when you look at the Big 12 as a whole, 4 teams with 4 guys drafted, just not even comparing Iowa State to them, like that's good for the league, right? You got Kansas State, a team that I was surprised to have 3. And then 6 schools with at least one guy. I feel like that's worth noting. The Big 12 kind of moving up in the world a little bit. Definitely didn't have the numbers of the Big 10 or the SEC. I get it. But at least we didn't have 10 guys, We had more than that. I feel like that's a win. Let me know down below what you think. Thanks for sticking around till this point in the episode. Be sure to hit subscribe so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. And come back tomorrow for more Cyclones coverage. Your team every day here at Locked on Cyclones. Until next time, Cyclone fans, sign up.